Sister, we continue on with lesson 1 in chapter 8, understanding the Greek culture. Yesterday we got introduced to this first chapter when we talked a lot about their religion. We talked about their mythology with all their Greek gods and goddesses. As we worked our way through those different stories, we went through the important ones that were listed there, and then we ended with talking about how they worship their gods, and then the oracle at Delphi where you went to get answers. Today we're going to continue on and talking about some of their art that is there, from their writing to their sculptures and things like that. Okay. It says, Greek poems and stories are some of the oldest literature in Western civilization. For hundreds of years, Europeans and Americans, number one, have used ancient Greek works as models for their writing and literature. England's William Shakespeare is an example. He borrowed Greek plots and settings for many of his dramas. He also organized his plays similarly to the way Greek dramas were organized. So obviously William Shakespeare, guys, probably the most famous playwright of all time, borrowed a lot of his things from 1,000 years, 2,000 years before he lived. The first Greek stories were epics. Remember, epics are really long stories or really long poems. The two great epics of ancient Greece were the Iliad and the Odyssey. The poet, holy cow, hang on a second, sixth grade. I totally opened up the wrong lesson for you, and you're telling you to fill in the blank with Americans, and I have a chapter earlier than that. Okay, sorry. This was the Americans here. This was great epics here as we get cruising through this, okay? Sorry about that. Was the Iliad and the Odyssey. The poet Homer composed them during the 700 BCs. Homer based these epics on stories about a war between Greece and the city of Troy. Troy once existed in the area that is today northwestern Turkey. So we have Troy today, guys. And they always talk about the Trojan War that was fought, and we'll learn about it here as we talk about these stories. In the Iliad, a prince of Troy, so fill in your blanks, a prince of Troy falls in love with Helen, the wife of a Greek king, and kidnaps her. The kidnapping angers the Greeks, who attack Troy in revenge. The Greeks, however, cannot break through the thick walls surrounding the city. In order to get into the city, the Greeks trick the Trojans and construct a huge hollow wooden horse. The finest Greek soldiers hide inside the horse. All the other Greek soldiers board ships and sail away. The Trojans think that they've won the war and that the horse is a victory prize from the Greeks. The Trojans roll the giant horse into the city. That night, the Greeks creep out of the horse and open the city gates. They allow the rest of the Greek army, who have sailed back to Troy after dark, to enter the city. The Greeks then capture the city, rescue Helen, and take her home. So you got this great story here, guys, about this Trojan War. They have looked for artifacts of this big, huge war horse to see if it's a real story or not. And they really can't find any evidence that this happened or not. But we have a lot of respect for Homer, and then we'll also talk about how the Greeks view these stories as actually happening with it. But a fun story. Made into a movie these days. When you turn 17, you can probably watch it because it's gory and a lot of killing and stuff like that. But that's the Iliad, guys. Prince of Troy marries the wrong girl, kidnaps her, they get revenge, they sneak into the city and destroy the city. Okay, so you're through number 4 there. Let's get the other story. The Odyssey tells the story of Odysseus. So the Odyssey with Odysseus. He is a Greek hero from this Trojan War you just read about. It describes his long trip home after the fall of Troy. He faces storms, monsters, and witches along the way. Odysseus finally returns to his wife. According to the poem, it takes Odysseus 10 years to accomplish his arrival in Greece. Today, people use the word Odyssey, a word taken from his name, to describe a long and exciting journey. So 10 years, guys, overcoming all kinds of things, from the one-eyed giants to the screaming sirens on an island. And he overcomes them with his great, cunning, awesome belief system. So you got number 5 there. Let's see the outcome of this. It says the Greeks believed the Iliad and the Odyssey were more than just stories, guys. They looked at the epics as real history. These poems gave Greeks an ideal past with a cast of heroes. One Athenian wrote, "My father, in his pains to make me a good man, compelled me to learn the whole of Homer's poems." In other words, I want you, son, to grow up and act like Odysseus. So that's how they taught him that. Homer's stories taught courage and honor. Number 7, they also taught that it was important to be loyal to your friends and to value the relationship between a husband and wife. So we're going to go get revenge. We're going to come back home. If I'm Odysseus, I'm going to fight through 10 years of struggles to get back home to my wife. The story showed heroes striving to be the best they could be. Heroes fought to protect their own honor and their family's honor. Homer's heroes became role models for Greeks' boys. And now you just got a little line from it, guys. "Oh, friends, be men, so act that none may feel ashamed to meet the eyes of other men. Think each other of his children, his wife, his home, his parents, living yet or dead." So just the encouragement, guys. And so it's a great example for us, guys, as we talk about what makes a culture unique and bringing things from other cultures into ours. When I think of the word hero, who do I think of? And do they teach me good qualities or not? Lots of times when we hear heroes, we think of maybe celebrities. And I might think of a really good basketball player. Great. Does the really good basketball player teach me good values in my life? If not, I need somebody in my life that's going to teach me these good values. So the Greeks said, we got these stories and we're going to teach our kids this is the real deal, because that's what we want a hero. That's what we want our children to grow up to act like. And so accept that in your own life, that encouragement, guys, to make sure we're acting the right way. Okay, Homer with his Iliad and his Odyssey. Let's get another guy who's really famous for his writing. Have you ever heard the story of the Fox and the Grapes, or the Boy Who Cried Wolf? These stories have traditionally been credited to a man named Aesop. He is supposed to have lived and told his stories around 550 BC, so about 150 years after Homer. Historians, though, now know that Aesop probably never existed. However, the stories he's supposed to have told certainly do exist. They are known as Aesop's fable. A fable is a short tale that teaches a lesson. In most of Aesop's fables, animals speak and act like people. These stories are often funny, but they show the human weaknesses and strengths. Each fable ends with a moral or a useful truth. So we're cruising through this one, guys. And you got number 8 done. It shows human weaknesses. So like I think about the boy who cried wolf, right? He sits there, he says, "Wolf, wolf." The whole city comes running out, thinks he's in danger. And then he just laughs because he made it up. The second day he cries, "Wolf, wolf." The whole city comes out. And he laughs because he just made it up. The third day a wolf attacks him. He cries, "Wolf, wolf." The city says, "You're a liar, kid." And so they don't come out and the wolf eats the boy. And so you got stories like that that teach you don't ever lie. That's the moral. That's the youthful truth. Because I tell lies, people stop believing me. Then when I actually need them to believe me, in this case because it was really life or death, they don't. Let's get another famous one. One of Aesop's more popular fables is The Hare and the Tortoise. So you're cruising through number 9. In this fable, a slow-moving tortoise or turtle and a speedy hare or rabbit race each other. Soon the hare is far ahead. Sure of victory, the hare stops to take a nap. Meanwhile, the tortoise keeps slowly moving. He passes the sleeping rabbit and wins the race. The moral of the story is slow and steady wins the race. Many phrases from Aesop's fables are still in use today, including "it's easy to dislike something you cannot have" and "appearances can be deceiving." So, guys, you got the hare and the tortoise, slow and steady wins the race, and those phrases that come from there. Okay, so too confident in your victory, takes my time, right? Stick with the things. I love all that stuff. And you take other little short stories, guys. So it's how we teach our children values or morals that we want into their lives. Appearances can be deceiving, kind of things like that. Aesop's fables were told during the time that's known as the Golden Age of Greece. During this period, art, philosophy, architecture, and literature flourished. So you got your next one to fill in your blanks, guys. The Golden Age. Remember, Golden Age is when we have peace and prosperity. So we're not at war and we have a lot of money. When we have a lot of money, guys, people can pay other people to develop cool things that last. If we're at war, I'm too nervous that I might die, or I'm too nervous about fighting, that these things go away. Okay, so keep that in mind. You think about that right now, guys, in 2020. We're at war with COVID right now. We're spending a ton of money on that, and everybody's nervous about it. Think of all the new movies that have been made. None. We got other things on our mind, right? We're not in a golden age of America right now because we're working through all the troubles. We're down on money because the money's going to fight the COVID and things like that. That these things are going away for us right now. Now, when our economy comes back, hopefully when COVID goes away, you'll see these things. In America, we've always been pretty prosperous, guys, where we have a lot of those things going on. But help understand that in ancient times, when times are tough, these things go away. So we've been working our way through literature today. We're going to keep working through some of the rest of these things. Finishing up, it says, for 200 years, Aesop's fables were part of Greek oral tradition. This means that the stories were simply passed from generation to generation by word of mouth. It took many years before these tales were written down. Since then, Aesop's fables have been translated into many languages. They are still read by people around the world today. If you've heard of any of those stories, guys, the boy who cried wolf, the tortoise and the hare, okay, you are now carrying on his tradition. Sorry about that. That are 2,500 years old. You also filled in number 12 on your blanks there about the age of those things. All right, let's talk about Greek dramas. The ancient Greeks created and performed the first dramas. Number 13 in your notes. Drama is a story told mainly through words and actions of a cast of characters. A drama is performed by actors. In ancient Greece, they were performed on stage. Many of today's movies, plays, and television shows are dramas. Okay, so here is their theater that they used to do those dramas in. Here's the Greek culture influencing our little acts and plays today, right? Okay. Think about your favorite movie. How would you describe it? Is it humorous? Is it a serious story? Greek dramas can be divided into two categories, tragedy and comedy. So you're cruising through number 14 here. In a tragedy, the main character struggles to overcome hardships but does not succeed. As a result, the story has a tragic or unhappy ending. The earliest Greek plays were tragedies. Later, the Greeks also wrote comedies. In a comedy, the story ends happily. Today, the word comedy means a story filled with humor. So, guys, tragedy we usually think of serious, sometimes unhappy endings, but it's real life, right? Comedies, we think of ends happily. I always think of all your Disney movies, right? They end happily ever after. The princess marries the prince, and they live happily ever after. The girl finds a prince. The boy marries a princess, right? They're always these feel-good stories. And we watch those, and they make us feel good, but sometimes you step back and you're like, okay, but that's just not real life. Not everybody lives happily ever after in this world kind of thing. And so you've got to balance both of those guys on how they go through that. All right? Let's talk about the famous playwrights. Number 15. During the 5th century BC, 4 writers emerged as the greatest Greek dramatists or writers. Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes. These 4 dramatists wrote their plays during the golden age of Greece, which was from 500 to 350 BC. So life was good in Greece for these 150 years. Then Alexander the Great's going to hit the scene, and Alexander the Great's going to wallop, okay? If you remember last chapter, this might be the golden age of Greece, guys, but Sparta and Athens go to war with each other. Persia's messing around in there. It's great. Aeschylus was the earliest Greek drama, so he was the first one, guys. One of his dramas is set of 3 plays. It's called Oresteia. This drama tells about a Greek king's return from the Trojan War and the troubles that strike his family. Oresteia is a story about revenge and murder. Letter A. It shows how one evil action can lead to another. Often the play ends tragically. Although the play ends tragically, good triumphs over evil in the end. So guys, an example of we're trying to teach you a truth was think about David and Bathsheba. David, you messed up. You did the evil action of committing adultery with Bathsheba. And then what did you do? You murdered the husband to cover it up, didn't you? And so one evil action leads to another. Sometimes you see that in our own lives. I overslept and didn't do my homework, so bad, didn't do my homework. Then I asked my friend to cheat. Then I cheat. Then I tell lies about not cheating, right? Boom, you can see how it completely spirals out of control. So he has his famous drama here to say, hey, problems can get out of hand real fast. Don't let problems get out of hand real fast. Let's get famous person number 2, Sophocles. Sophocles was a great Athenian writer. In his play, Sophocles accepted suffering as a real part of life. He also stressed courage and understanding. In his play, Antigone, Sophocles questions whether it's better to obey orders or to do what one believes to be right. So you got your fill in the blank there, guys. Those are some of the movies today that you might really enjoy, where you can see the main character put in a really tough position and you're going, man, he was given an order to do something, but it goes against what he believes. Should he follow that order? So you have examples of this in World War II. You think of all the people that hid the Jews in their houses or snuck them out. Okay, they were given orders to turn the Jews over to the Nazi army, but that went against what they believed is right. In other words, is it okay to not listen to people to do what you believe is the right thing to do? Lots of good stories in real life, lots of good movies made on that question right there on should I follow an order or should I do what I believe is right when they contradict each other. The third leading Greek dramatist was Euripides. Unlike the first two, Euripides wrote more about human beings in realistic situations. Okay, so you got his fill in the blank. He's just going to keep it real. His plays often show suffering caused by war. So he lived at a time, guys, when we're in this golden age, but there's still the wars going on. And so he just shows what war is and opens the eyes to the common people that there's a lot of suffering that goes along in war. I think we've learned to accept that today as we've watched and heard enough movies. But guys, back in the day, when we didn't have television everywhere, people viewed war kind of glorious. If you study the Civil War, you know when the first battles broke out, the rich people of the city literally got in their horse and carriage and went out to the hillside and watched it. Like it was a picnic kind of thing. Like, this is so great, grand, and glorious. No, we got to show you the suffering side of it so that you realize it's not always great, grand, and glorious, and there's a lot of death and horrible things that go along with that. Okay, you think about studying Sparta last chapter. Sparta, we love being soldiers, and I'm going to teach my kid not to be scared of dying. Okay, well, your kid's still dead, right? So we try to balance those things. In theaters today, the actors include men, women, and children. In ancient Greece, however, only men could be actors. Even female characters were played by male actors. The most famous writer of Greek comedies was Aristophanes. His work poked fun at the leaders and issues of his day. So you got number 4 there. He encouraged people to think and laugh. Many of Aristophanes' comedies included jokes, just as a television comedy show does today. So a couple things, guys. All the actors were men. Usually you'd have younger boys play the female characters before their voice, changed, and so they could sound like that. But that's also why they wore masks. And guys, lots of times the symbol for a drama in high school is I have those 2 masks that I put on because you covered up your face. It also worked as a megaphone for them as well. But Aristophanes said, hey, we can laugh and have some fun, but we can also make fun of our leaders and the issues of the day to challenge us to talk about the issues of the day. Drama was more than entertainment for the people in ancient Greece. It was part of their religious festivals and a way to show loyalty to your city-state. Number 16. In early Greek dramas, a group of performers called the chorus presented the story through singing and dancing. Later, dramas used several actors on stage. Then, stories began creating action, number 17, and conflict among the characters. So we just slowly changed it and did acting and talking and things like that as it moved along. Last but not least, let's talk about architecture and art. The ancient Greeks excelled in art and architecture. They created works that expressed the ideals of reason, balance, and harmony. The characters in Greek art became artistic style that we now call classical, number 18. Classical Greek art standards of beauty that people still admire today. The ancient Greeks constructed beautiful buildings. Every Greek city-state had a temple dedicated to a god or goddess. Temples such as the Parthenon included a central room that housed statues of the gods. Large, graceful columns, supported many Greek buildings. Some famous buildings in Washington, D.C., such as the White House and the Capitol, have great Greek columns. So this one, guys, you can see is the Lincoln Memorial, as all these columns. That's from Greece. Now, you can see there's 3 types of columns in this little picture here. There's the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian, and each one gets a little bit fancier as the time passed on. And try to zoom in a little bit so you can see how this one's just a square top. This one's got a little swirly swirl. And that one's got some fancy stuff at the top, okay? So they would make their columns up here to do those things to make them look a little bit better. Okay, sculpture decorated many Greek temples. The human body was the favorite subject of Greek artists. Greek sculptors tried, this last one, Greek sculptors tried to show ideal beauty in perfect human forms. So we'll talk about, guys, that's classical, like you are the perfect person. Reality is, guys, some sculptors said, we're going to get away from that because there's no such thing as this perfect human being, right? Let's just create humans like humans are. We still argue with that today, right? Do we want our models to be what we call these supermodels, these beautiful people who look perfect? But reality is they're not really perfect, right? They get a lot of hair and makeup and things done to make them look perfect for their photos, guys, and it sometimes gives us a warped idea when I look in the mirror and say, well, I can never look like that, so I'm ugly and blah, blah, and then that hurts our feelings, doesn't it? So trying to balance those things. All right, guys, we got lesson 1 of chapter 8 done. Hopefully you got all those blanks filled in, and then you can finish your worksheet with it. Have a great day. Now I should maybe give you a chance to get extra credit. If you want extra credit, guys, I want you to think of an example of when it would be better to do what's right than to follow the order you have given. Maybe you got an idea from a book or movie or something in real life that you could write down and say, what would you do? Would you follow this order, or would you do what you believe is right? Write that up there to get some extra credit. Now have a great day.